Good morning. Hope you're having a great week. It is Wednesday, May 7th, 10:54 a.m. Mountain Daylight Time, local time here in Sydney, Montana. I'm about 7 miles away from North Dakota where it goes to Central Daylight Time and it's 11:54 a.m. there. So we're going to do a load board video. I'm going to try to keep it kind of short. So that means I'm not going to be able to give a ton of feedback on the loads because what makes these videos really long is me talking about the loads. But it's still probably going to be 30 minutes to an hour. When I say short, I mean I'm going to try to keep it from going like 2 or 3 hours. So let's just look at the load board first of all. Let's clear the search. I don't have anything at all. So this is every single load on Landstar's load board. Unless there's some like restricted access loads that I don't have access to, there are 65,820 loads on Landstar's load board. Now let's look at direct shipper loads. 3,795 loads. So there are 3,800 contract loads on Landstar's load board and 65,853 total loads. So almost all of Landstar's load board, over 61,000 loads, are reposted spot market loads. And a lot of those are duplicate loads. So you'll see one spot market load listed 20 or more times. So I would say that of the 66,000 loads on Landstar's load board, there's probably about 10,000 real loads. That's how inflated the numbers are. All right, so now let's start drilling down. Let me we're going to select all containers because agents don't know how to list loads. Um, Whenever you select container, that means that you're going to be showing up with a chassis or container. If you're just hauling a chassis or a container, that should be listed as a power only load. But we have 7 of these loads listed. Let's go and look at these 7 loads. So this is listed as a chassis. Commodity is container. So this means that you have to show up with a chassis. So let's drill into it and see if that's the case. Round trip container, TWIC required. Well, maybe you need to bring your own chassis. I'm not sure. Not enough details. Container or flatbed. This tells me I don't even need to drill into this one. This one tells me that you do not need to bring your own container because it can be hauled on a flatbed as well. So this is a container. So you either need a chassis or a flatbed to haul it, most likely. 8-foot tarps. 48-foot flatbed, 53 step deck, container. Chassis, container, towaway. Towaway is customer equipment. But yeah, this just gives you an example of how they don't list things correctly. So I just go ahead and there's so few of these loads. Imagine there was some really awesome container load that was posted and it was basically just a power only load and you didn't see it because the agent didn't list it properly and you didn't choose container. Anyway, I'm going into too much detail on this. This is going to take 4 hours to do this if I keep going into this much detail. Another thing I choose is specialized, needing power only. And then we'll go into van and select van, and then we're going to deselect VNLG, van trailer with lift gate. Now we're down to 55,000 available loads. So, almost all of the loads on Landstar's load board are van loads. So of the 65,000 loads on Landstar's load board, 10,000 of them are not van loads. That tells me that if you're not hauling dry van, Landstar is not the place to be. If you're flatbed or reefer or container or anything like that, if you're anything except dry van, Landstar is probably not the place you want to be. There are some loads out there, but yeah, you're probably not going to enjoy Landstar if you're not a dry van driver. All right, what else are we going to select? Well, let's go down here into an advanced, flags, team. No. All right, let's see how much this changes it. So we're at 55, 173. Take away team. And we lost like 400 loads. So there's only like 300 or 400 team loads on Landstar's load board. So Landstar is probably not a great place to be as a team. I don't know about that. There are a lot of dedicated loads for teams. I think a lot of the team loads don't make it to the load board. Almost every team that I've ever run into runs dedicated. So I wouldn't say that Landstar is a bad place to be if you're team. I think Landstar is a great place to be for teams. But if you're just running random freight off the load board, you're probably not going to be too happy as a team at Landstar. But once you get a dedicated run as a team, then you'll probably be good to go. All right. Any other flags we want to set? No, I think we'll leave that. Now let's go with max weight. Let's see how many. We're going to set it at 45,000 pounds so we get rid of all of the like specialized loads. So 53,884 from 54. So we lost like 900 loads. So there are like 900 overweight loads. Now let's do a minimum rate per mile of $2.50. This is basically the break even. So any price that you see on the load board is the full rate. We only get about 70% of it. So a load that pays $2.50 a mile, I only make $1.75 a mile on that load. That's what I make gross to the truck before all my expenses. What I'm actually getting paid is $1.75 a mile, and then I have to pay for fuel and truck and maintenance and repairs and subscriptions and taxes and everything, all out of that $1.75 a mile. So that's my total amount that I make. My cut on the load is $1.75 a mile on a load that pays $2.50 a mile. And $1.75 a mile gross to the truck is the break even for most trucks. Somewhere in that ballpark of around $1.75 a mile. If you factor in the cost of everything, including paying the driver roughly 60 cents a mile. Because if you don't pay the driver yourself, then how do you pay for your mortgage? How do you pay for your car? How do you pay for food? If you're not factoring in that, if you're just factoring in, I can haul loads at $1.15 a mile and that's my break even. Well, yeah, that may be your break even for your truck payment and your fuel costs and all that stuff, but like how are you going to buy food running loads at $1.15 a mile? How are you going to pay for your house, your car, all of your personal expenses? You have to factor in the driver as well when you're figuring in your operating costs. So $2.50 a mile is like bare minimum break even. I do not like hauling loads at $2.50 a mile. So that got rid of 50,000 loads right there. Let's see here. So we're at our 40,000 loads. So we're at 54,000 loads, put in 250 a mile, and we go to 14,000 loads. So we just lost 40,000 loads. So 40,000 loads out of the 65,000 loads on Landstar's load board. Well, we can't say that because maybe some of those we filtered out in other ways. Let's just leave it at a very large percentage of the loads on Landstar's load board are not profitable. Now let's do a minimum of $1,500. And now we just got rid of another 1,000 loads. So is a load that's going 10 miles that's paying $3 a mile a good load? $30 to take a load 10 miles? No. So $1,500 times 0.7. 1,500 times 0.7. That's $1,050. So that's another like threshold. Almost all loads are going to take you 2 days. So if you're making $1,050, that's $525 a day. $500 a day is another threshold of profitability. You need to be doing a minimum of $500 a day gross to the truck. Otherwise, you're going to struggle to be profitable. At $500 a day gross to the truck, you're going to struggle. So by me putting in a minimum of $1,500 revenue and $2.50 a mile, that's cutting out almost all of the unprofitable loads. Now, there are situations where there are loads that are same day loads, or various other things. So this isn't like 100% on profitability. There are loads that pay less revenue than this that are still profitable, but I just use this to filter out all the junk loads. I'll usually, if I'm looking for short runs, I'll usually do a completely separate search. But this just tells you that on Landstar's load board, there's only about 4,100 profitable loads for solo dry vans. Even though there's 65,000 loads on the board, only about 4,000 of them are profitable. And a lot of these might not even be profitable loads. They might be, mislabeled, or there might be other things about them that make them not profitable. So now, with just those few, I use much more strict filters whenever I'm searching. But let's look at the Houston market, because I had somebody request me to look at the Houston market. 96 loads, but let's do a search radius of 150 miles. I think that might actually get the Dallas market as well. I'm not sure how far it is between Houston and Dallas, but let's just leave it at 150 miles. That's a lot of loads. 246 loads to look through. We're not going to look through all those loads. Usually whenever I have that many results, I'll start increasing the parameters to shorten the list. Oh my goodness, Canada. I don't know. Maybe you want to run Canada. We're not. We're going to leave Canada loads in there. So 250 a mile. Let's sort these loads. Let's look by total revenue. So the highest paying load is Sugar Land, Texas to Calgary, Canada. $5,700, $270 a mile. And there's another one of the loads listed by another agency. It's the exact same load, but it's using a different zip code. This is a tactic that agents use to make their loads look better. If you use different zip codes, it can change the mileage by a little bit, like 10, 15, maybe even 20 miles or something, and it increases or decreases your rate per mile. So we have a 7 cent per mile difference between these two, but it's the exact same load, and this one's paying $100 less. They're using different zip codes, so they have different mileage. The mileage difference is 113 to 129. Was that 16 miles? So, all right, there's another Canada load. It's really close to the same mileage. This could actually be the same load. Hungerford, Texas to Horseheads, New York. Max weight consumer goods 286 a mile. And a whole bunch of these Hitchcock, Texas to Evansville, Wyoming, paying between 280 and 320 a mile. Most of these loads are spot market loads, just reposted spot market crap. You'll see the same load listed multiple times. That's because there's a whole bunch of Landstar agents that are bidding on the load, and they're all putting the load on the load board. So you might see one load listed 20, 30 times because there's like 20 or 30 Landstar agents all bidding on the load. I thought there was supposed to be some. I don't know all the rules with the agents. I've had agents tell me that I had an agent like I called on a load and the agent told me that the rate on the that she put on the load was a complete just make believe Fantasyland crap. She said that she just wanted to list the load before anybody else so that no one else could bid against her. Um, she basically told me that Landstar has a policy that Landstar agents are not allowed to bid against each other on loads. But like that doesn't make any sense because I see Landstar agents all bidding against each other on the same load all the time. So I don't know what the exact policies are, but I've had agents tell me things that just didn't make any sense, things that I knew were lies. I've had agents tell me that they can't negotiate fuel surcharge, that fuel surcharge is dictated by Landstar and it's not dictated by them. So they can't change the fuel surcharge. It's just whatever Landstar sets it at. That is completely wrong because I have negotiated fuel surcharge many, many times. So I don't really trust much of anything the agents say. They're salespeople. Salespeople are professional liars. I hate salespeople. All right. These are. I'm just skimming through here and I'm not seeing anything that looks good. Hillshire, Texas to Akron, Ohio. Akron's a decent location. Max weight hazmat 287 a mile. That's not great, but I mean you're going to a decent destination. But this is a spot market load that a bunch of agents are bidding on because I see it listed here 3 more times, and the lowest bid is 262 a mile. And this is the spot market is the lowest bid market, so yeah, it's a bad load. Colorado, Florida, Florida. $3 a mile going to Colorado and Florida, that's really bad. You have a big deadhead on those loads. Right, just skimming through here, I'm not seeing anything that looks good. I might, there might be a good load that I miss, but I'm not seeing anything that looks good. It's all a bunch of like 250 to 280 a mile crap. So loads that would pay me like $1.75 to $2 a mile. Galena Park, Texas to Pampa, Texas. $1,850, 312 a mile. Okay, we're starting to get into the cheap loads that are higher rate per mile, but they're short runs. What is this nonsense? Somebody put in 0 miles. 1 pound of hazmat, Pasadena, Texas to Gardendale, Texas, for $1,800. And there's 6 of these loads listed. And here is the exact same load listed by by another agent, but it's 600 miles at 286 a mile. Man, what is the 9th? Is the 9th a Friday? Yeah, that's the reason. I'm like, man, these are some short, like 1 day runs, but they're listed for like 3 and 4 days. But it's because it's the weekend, and almost all warehouses and distribution centers are closed on the weekend. All right, that's all of them. That was Houston. And now let's look at another market. Uh, let's go over to Fontana, which is the LA market, Fontana, California. I was about to say the 4,000 loads. No, okay, so we're at 404 loads. And let's sort by highest paying load. Do not take one of these Alaska loads. I've never hauled an Alaska load, but I've looked into it, and there's almost nothing coming out of Anchorage. So there's a very high probability that you're going to have to deadhead all the way from Anchorage back to the contiguous United States, which I don't know how far that is. It's like 1,500 to 2,000 miles or something. It's a lot of miles. Um, so yeah, basically, whatever these rate per miles are, you not quite cut them in half, but you can almost cut them in half. This is more like, instead of 466 a mile, this is more like 233 a mile. We'll say 250 a mile. And then you're only getting 70% of that. So this load is paying, it's about the equivalent of a load that's paying $2.50 a mile, roughly. It's just such a massive mileage run. So I would not recommend doing an Alaska load unless they're paying like $15 a mile. And I have seen Alaska loads paying like $10 to $15 a mile. That were, back when we were at an all-time high freight market. Yeah, you could find Alaska loads paying like $12 a mile. And back then, it still wasn't worth it. Alaska loads, no matter how much they pay, are generally not worth it. You're going to make more money, running something else. So anyway, Calexico to Calexico. What is this? 40,000 pounds of auto parts, one extra stop, $12,000. It's only $265 a mile. It's just a huge mileage run. Let's look into that and see what that is. Supposedly it's a week, the 12th through the 19th. I think I saw what it was. I hate this load board. Okay, so it doesn't have any additional information. The one extra stop is in Romulus, Michigan. So you're going from Calexico to Romulus, Michigan and back. Is it a contract load? Direct shipper? Yes. That I almost exclusively haul direct shipper freight, contract freight. So that looks like a decent load. Calexico is like right on the border of Mexico. It's a decent load, but I don't know. Auto part loads usually pay a premium. So it looks like this agency is doing low bid auto part loads. So anyway, I'm going to let you look at this, and I'm going to address another request that I had. Somebody wanted me to talk about buying a used truck. I don't really have much feedback on buying a used truck. If anybody else has feedback on a used truck, on how to purchase a used truck, throw it in the comments. I paid cash for my truck. I used a cashier's check. I looked at, the various websites that post used trucks. I looked at Craigslist. I looked at a whole bunch of stuff, and I found the truck that I wanted. I had a very specific truck that I was looking for. I wanted a Volvo with an automatic transmission that had a Volvo engine paired with a Volvo transmission. I forget what Volvo calls it, iSync or something like that. I can't remember Volvo's term for it. But the reason I wanted Volvo specifically is because Volvo, in the year that I was looking at purchasing a truck, I couldn't afford a brand new truck. Sorry, there's a four-wheeler that just pulled up next to me. I don't know what they're doing. They're just circling the parking lot. Um, Freightliner did not get the synced transmission until, like, I can't remember when, like 2019 year models. So that's the reason I went with Volvo, because there's a huge difference between just like an automatic transmission that's unsynced and an automatic transmission that's synced. So to have a synced transmission, as far as I know, unless they've come up with new technology since I've done any research on it, you have to have the same manufacturer transmission and engine to have them synced together. And the way that they drive a synced automatic transmission versus an unsynced it's a massive difference. I drove a Kenworth that had like a PACCAR automatic transmission and a I don't even know what engine, Cummins engine in it, I think. It was unsynced, and that thing was almost like driving a manual because you had to be careful with how much throttle you gave it, because the amount of throttle that you were giving it could cause it to not be able to get into gear. But the synced transmissions, they will take over the throttle whenever it's shifting to align them so that it does a perfect shift every time. The unsynced transmissions don't do that. If you're giving it too much throttle when it's trying to shift, it can miss a gear. And they're really bad about lunging at low speeds and just all kinds of stuff. But anyway, I'm going into too much detail. This is going to take like 4 hours if I go into that much detail. I had a whole bunch of things that I wanted, APU, etc. And I found almost exactly what I was looking for. It was $40,000, and I just called the dealership up in Fargo, North Dakota, and talked with them about it and said, okay, I'm going to be there on this day, and I'm going to have a cashier's check. And they said, all right, we'll have the paperwork ready. So I rented a car, drove up there, looked at the truck, gave them a cashier's check, signed the paperwork, and then drove out of there. So I don't know much of anything about financing a used truck. I do know that I looked into financing a used truck, and it's basically impossible for a first-time buyer. If you are already an owner-operator and you have, established company credit and you have established business revenue to where you can show business revenue over years, then you might be able to get a loan for a truck. Of course you can get a loan for a truck. There's lots of people that get loans for trucks. But it is extremely difficult. It's almost impossible. I would say it's impossible for a first-time buyer to do just normal financing on a commercial vehicle, unless you're able to do it with a personal loan. I don't know how in the world you do it with a personal loan, but if you could get a bank to give you a personal loan, then yeah, maybe you could do it that way. But to get a business loan to finance the purchase of a commercial vehicle, it's basically impossible for a first time buyer because you don't have any like established revenue for your business yet. You don't have basically any business credit or anything, so it's going to be nearly impossible. That's the reason lease purchase is the most common way that people buy their first truck. It's about the only way that most people can buy their first truck, unless you have like $50,000 saved up, which I had. Most people don't have $50,000 sitting in the bank. So lease purchase is about the only option that most people have to buy their first truck. Now, if you manage to save up not just enough to cover the cost of the vehicle, but also you're going to have other expenses before you can start making money. And you're probably going to be sitting around for a few weeks before you can start making money, or maybe even a couple of months. So you have to be able to cover all your personal expenses, all your business expenses for a couple of months after you buy the truck, and you're going to have a lot of expenses coming up. So you need the cost of the vehicle and probably another $10,000 or more minimum setting aside to cover all of your other expenses that are going to arise before you're able to start making money on that truck. So yeah, it's lease purchase is the only option for most people on buying your first truck. But if you're able to squirrel away a bunch of money, then maybe you could pay cash for a used truck. Financing your first truck with normal financing, like you do a car, unrealistic option. You can call around to several different banks and ask, but I think most of them are going to laugh at you. Um, that's just realistically, they're going to laugh at you. Like I am like a VIP member with my bank. Like my bank kisses my ass every time I deal with them as far as my personal banking goes. I have amazing credit. I finance cars and motorcycles and houses and all kinds of stuff with my bank. They're constantly trying to get me to take new loans. And my bank kisses my ass every time I interact with them. I contacted my same bank. The business side of the bank laughed at me whenever I asked them about financing a truck. They literally laughed at me. It pissed me off how rude they were. They wanted multiple revenue streams. They wanted like a minimum of 2 or 3 years of financials. Um, and like I can't even remember the long list of requirements that they had to get a business loan. It was insane. I still don't meet the requirements because I don't have multiple forms of revenue. I don't have multiple revenue streams. They told me at an absolute minimum to get a business loan with them, you had to have two revenue streams. You couldn't get all your money just through one business. You had to have multiple businesses. So, anyway, if anybody else has any feedback on buying a used truck or buying your first truck, then feel free to throw it in the comments. But lease purchase is the easiest way to do it, and I've never seen a lease purchase that was not like predatory. It's lease purchases are basically it's like buying a car with bad credit. It's not going to be favorable terms. I've never seen a lease purchase that had favorable terms or that had like mutually beneficial terms. They're very lopsided toward the person leasing. But anyway, let's get back to the load board video. I probably should have just scrolled through here while I was talking, because that's probably all I'm going to end up doing anyway. Every time I see a load that looks decent, like 344 a mile, destination's Colorado, that's not a good load. If it's going out in the middle of nowhere to where you're going to have to deadhead 500 to 1,000 miles to get a load, then it has to pay a lot of money. Now there might be some decent loads that I'm skipping over here and I'm not noticing. If I see a good load, I'm going to call it out, but I'm going through here so fast I might not notice a good load. San Bernardino to Tualatin, Oregon. I think Tualatin is basically Portland. 40,000 pounds of hazmat, 321 a mile. That's decent. I'm not going to be able to go into California at the end of this month. My carb permit expires at the end of this month. This San Bernardino to Ogden, Utah is listed like 20 plus times. There's 11 listings on this one alone. There's 4 on this one. So just these 2 right here is 15 listings. This is a whole bunch of Landstar agents bidding on this load. 442 a mile is not happening. It's lowest bid. So you're not getting the 442 a mile on that. It's listed, and it's probably listed hundreds of times across several different load boards. That load might even be covered right now. Somebody booked it for like 80 cents a mile. There's some team of foreigners that are getting paid like $2 a week in some 20-year-old truck held together with duct tape that just booked that load. And they're making money on it at 80 cents a mile. Nothing wrong with 20-year-old trucks. Some of the best trucks on the road are 20-year-old trucks. I'm talking specifically about the ones held together with duct tape. There's another one of the San Bernardino to Ogden, Utah, 420 a mile. You're not getting 420 a mile. That thing's on the load board probably 100 times. Colorado, 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 Colorado. Moreno Valley to Provo, Utah. So anything coming out of Moreno Valley on Landstar's load board is typically the Harbor Freight account. And it's listed at exactly 42,000 pounds, which is how the Harbor Freight, and it's the FLS agency, which has the Harbor Freight account. So Moreno Valley, California to Provo, Utah, 440 a mile, $2,746. Remember, we only get about 70%. Whatever you're seeing listed on here, these are the full rates. We only get 65% of the line haul, 100% of the fuel surcharge, which comes out to about 70%. So we're not getting 440 a mile. We're getting 4.4 times 0.7, roughly $3.08 a mile. Somewhere around $3 a mile gross to the truck on that load. I'm not sure where exactly Provo, Utah is at. I think that might be, if it's close to Salt Lake, then that's a pretty good load. Not great, because Salt Lake is not a good destination. But if it's near Salt Lake, it's a pretty good load. If it's out in the middle of nowhere, then not so good load. I don't know where Provo's at. Anaheim to El Paso, 800 miles, 343 a mile, $2,700. Not bad. San Bernardino to Ogden, Utah, hazmat bulk, max weight, $4 a mile, $2,700. Another hazmat. They have it listed as hazmat and consumer goods or appliances. What in the world does that even mean? So it's a mixed load of hazmat and general goods. Hesperia, California to Jerome, Idaho, paying $380 a mile, $2,700. That's probably that same load that's listed up here, going to Ogden, Utah, because it's listed for the same amount of money. Same pickup and delivery dates. No, wait a minute. What am I thinking of? That's two completely different. Jerome, Idaho, and Ogden, Utah are too far away from each other, and the weights are too different. No, that's not the same load. Oh my goodness, it's doing this thing whenever you're scrolling, it'll like clip up, and you'll just be stuck in this infinite loop of scrolling. The jankiness of this load board. Landstar probably paid millions of dollars for this new load board, and it is janky crap. I bet they went through Oracle, and Oracle's just using their same crap software that they use with every company, and it just runs terrible. The last company I worked with, they used Oracle, and it was just a janky mess of nightmare. I don't know why. Like, these companies want everything the way that they want it, and then they hire a company that they just use their generic software, and then they just try to make it kind of work, and it just ends up just being this Frankenstein jumble of mess. All right, so now let's look at, well, let's go to Atlanta. $360 loads. You know what? We need to change some parameters. Let's check right here and let's do direct shipper. 78 loads. Oh, that's surprising. There's actually a lot of loads. These should be all contract loads. This is basically whenever I'm searching for a load to haul, I almost always only look at contract loads. I'm not interested in spot market loads because there's so much drama with them. So we have a whole bunch of loads coming out of Jefferson, Georgia, which are probably all the same agency, and they're going to various locations. New York, New York, New Hampshire, New York, New Jersey. They're all cheap loads, paying between $250 and $286 a mile. All right. Cheap, cheap, cheap. Here's one. Maryville, Tennessee to Bensalem, Pennsylvania. $320 a mile, $2,000, 641 miles. Let's keep scrolling, see if we see anything else. Florida for $3 a mile is bad. There might be some okay loads that I'm, skipping by, but I'm mainly just looking for something that's good. Here we go. Austell, Georgia to Chicago, Illinois, 371 a mile. 673 miles, $2,500. Let's see if there's any gotchas on this load. Once it goes through 15 websites and logs me in 12 more times. And all right, here we go. Warehouse to show weight tickets, 12 straps, times are firm. Warehouse to show weight tickets. I don't even know what that means. English, do you speak it? Just because you throw in words doesn't mean that it makes sense. The words have to be in a particular order. So it has very firm appointment times, and you have to get weight tickets. I don't know if you're probably gonna have to scale the load and pay for weight tickets, or maybe you scale on site and they have weight tickets or something. I have no idea, but they're probably paying by the pound for whatever it is that you're bringing in. So they want to verify the cargo weight, so they're going to make you scale it. They might make you scale empty and get a scale ticket and then scale again once you get loaded. And then you have to show the tickets to the receiver or something like that. I have no idea. But yeah, there's some weird crap with this load. Also, 12 straps. Most people do not carry 12 straps unless they're a flatbedder. That's a lot of securement materials. I do have 12 straps. I have more straps than most people. So yeah, there's some weird stuff with that load. What's weird is it's only listed at 25,000 pounds, and they're wanting you to get all kinds of scale tickets. I'm normally not scaling a load that's 25,000 pounds, so that weight may be wrong. All right, and that's the end of it for contract freight. I'm not going to bother looking at spot market loads. Spot market loads are just make believe, fictitious crap. You have no idea if the most of the spot market loads listed on Landstar's load board aren't even real loads. They're already covered. The prices are wrong. There's just so much incorrect information on them that they're make believe. All right, so now let's look at did we look at Chicago? I don't think we've looked at Chicago. 40 loads. Surprised that we have more contract freight coming out of Atlanta than Chicago. And we're only looking at, what is it, 150-mile radius? Yeah, 150-mile radius. Florida, Colorado, Florida, Florida, Colorado. Lots of Florida and Colorado loads. But $4 a mile going to Florida and Colorado is not the same as $4 a mile going to a decent destination. It's the reason you see so many high paying Florida and Colorado loads, because even at the rates that they're paying, it's still worse than $250 a mile going to Dallas. Burridge, Illinois to Omaha, Nebraska. Short mileage, 447 miles, 360 a mile, 1600 bucks. Marion, Indiana to Middlebury, Vermont. $4 a mile, $3,300. Hazmat, max weight. Here's another $4 a mile max weight hazmat load from Marion, Indiana to Pittston, Pennsylvania. That's the end of the list. All right, what time are we at? We are at 50 minutes. So let's do one more, and then we'll We'll wrap it up. I had two requests. I had the Houston market, which was I think the first one we looked at, and then talk about used trucks. So I think I covered the requests. Um, what else? What else? We looked at L.A., Atlanta. Did we do Dallas? Dallas is so close to Houston. We're not going to bother with it. Let's do Portland. This will be the last one. 5 loads. So Portland to Salt Lake City, that's 3 of the 5 loads. And I'm willing to bet that that is the CGI agency. Let's take a peek. Yes, this is the Saya account, the CGI agency. The 21st, the 21st, and the 28th. These are 1-day loads. The CGI agency that has the Saya account, whoever does the scheduling on those loads they don't understand truck driving. They schedule these loads as solo loads, but it's like 800 miles in 1 day. It's nearly impossible to make a lot of these. Most of these loads are team loads. You'd have to be in a truck that's capable of going 75 miles an hour, and have to be willing to drive 75 miles an hour to be able to make most of their delivery times. The Saya account is team loads that they're trying to move as solo to save money. And it's nearly impossible to make their appointment time. 765 miles, and I guarantee you it's more miles than that. It's probably closer to 800 miles. And you pick it up at 7 a.m. and then you deliver at 8 a.m. the following day. So you have like exactly 24 hours to go 800 miles. And that's not including any mileage that you need to drive to get to the pickup location and any mileage you need to drive after the delivery to get to some place to park. So you can easily add on another 40 miles. So 840 miles within 24 hours for a solo driver is almost impossible to do. Especially with 35,000 pounds driving through the mountains and driving across Oregon where the speed limits are between 55 and I think the speed limit goes up to 65 for trucks if you get out into eastern Oregon. On I-5, I don't think it gets above 60. But yeah, that's basically impossible for a solo driver. You'd have to be speeding and like I don't know. I've talked with Saya about their ridiculous expectations on these delivery appointments, and they have that same response that every idiot has, where they have some place they want you to back into. That's like, yeah, that's not no, that's not made for these trucks, or they want you to deliver somewhere or do something. We have trucks do it all the time. Yeah. I when somebody says that, I just want to hang up on them. I don't want to talk to them anymore. Whenever that's their validation for whatever it is that they're wanting you to do is, we have trucks do this all the time. Well, all right. Well, find somebody else to do it then. So I think we're going to wrap it up there. The freight market sucks, and it doesn't look like it's going to get better anytime soon. Um, the last thing I'll talk about before we wrap this up, and while I'm talking, let me pull up a new market. Let's just let's pull up. Let's just go ahead and pull up Dallas because I don't think Dallas pulled up in the Houston search. I think it's more than 150 miles between Dallas and Houston. I'm not sure though. But I'll scroll through here while I'm talking. So the tariffs, it takes time for them to, for the full impact. Like we saw the consequences of the tariffs immediately after they went into effect. But the full impact of the tariffs takes time. So it also takes time once the tariffs end. We're going to see an immediate impact when the tariffs end, but the full impact of the tariffs ending is going to take time. So I'm starting to get a little concerned over the tariffs right now because they're actually lasting longer than I expected them to last. And we really haven't even started negotiating with China. We've been negotiating with lots of other countries, um, and but China, we haven't even, to my knowledge, started negotiating. I think that the only thing that I've heard is China made some kind of outlandish demand to even start negotiating, and we told them no. That's just not happening. And that just, so like, China and the United States are just too far away from each other to even start negotiations. It's like somebody that's wanting $100,000 for a car and you're wanting to buy it for $1,000. You're just too far away to even negotiate. It's like we're not going to be able to come to any kind of consensus here. We're not going to be able to come to any agreeable terms. The two of us are just too far apart. So China is going to have to really like take a big hit in order for us to have a mutually beneficial trade agreement, because up to this point we've had very disproportionate trade with China. China basically has slave labor, and in order for us to be able to compete with them, because I don't want to sit here and spend hours explaining tariffs and economics and shit like that, but so U.S. companies cannot compete with slave labor in China. That's the reason Nikes are made. I mean, it's something that people have been joking around about for decades. Is Nikes are made with slave labor, and idiots pay like 100. Like, how much are Nike shoes these days? I don't even know how much they are. When I was a kid, a pair of Nikes was like 40 or $50, and that was quite a bit of money for a pair of sneakers. Now I've heard that Nikes are, like some of their sneakers, their basketball shoes, like 150, $200. Like, that's crazy. It probably cost Nike like $2 to make a pair of those shoes. It's just insane profit because of slave labor. Um, Apple uses slave labor to make their iPhones. That's the reason they're one of the most profitable companies in the world, is because they use slave labor. It's almost pure profit. Like, Apple has, I forget how much, but Apple has some obscene number of just cash in hand, like liquid money. They have like $400 billion or something crazy. I can't remember the amount. But yeah, that's the reason these companies do so well, is slave labor. And in order for U.S. companies to compete with the slave labor companies like Foxconn that operate out of places like China, we have to increase tariffs on them. We have to tax them to the point to where U.S. companies can compete. Otherwise, the U.S. companies can't compete. If we allow Apple to manufacture their phones with Foxconn using slave labor over in China, then companies that manufacture in the United States can't compete with that. If we have like balanced trade with them, if we don't have tariffs to offset their slave labor and their deregulation and all that crap. With no regulations, no labor laws or anything like that, and they're using slave labor, then it just causes all of our manufacturing to leave the United States and go to these slave labor countries like China. So we can't have like equal tariffs with China. We have to have balanced trade, and balance doesn't mean equal. Um, so like we're going to need to have higher tariffs on China than they have on us, and China just can't. They can't deal with that. China relies on us as a purchaser of their goods by a lot. And if we have balanced trade with them, then it's going to cause manufacturing to return to the United States, and it's going to push China out of our market. Um, and China just, I just don't see how we're going to come up with a balanced trade deal with China because it would be too devastating to China. And let's get back to the original topic I was talking about is the time. I was expecting that we would probably have some type of trade deal wrapped up within a month. And it's looking like it's going to take a lot longer than that. Whenever we actually do sign a trade deal, it's going to take a long time for things to get back to normal. And how long it's going to take to get back to normal depends on how long things were not normal. The longer this goes on, the longer it's going to take for things to get back to normal. Because there are businesses in China that have completely shut down. So it's going to take time for them to get things started again. So once this thing ramps back up, it's not like just immediately everything goes back to normal in China. Like there are businesses that have gone bankrupt. So it's going to take time for all that to come back online. So I'm starting to get a little concerned. I'm kind of hoping that this lasts a few months and it knocks a lot of trucking companies out of business. Even though I may be one of those trucking companies, it needs to happen. We need a lot of trucks removed from the road. There are lots of ways that hopefully that happens. I don't want to. This is a load board video. I don't want to get into rant and raving about all kinds of other stuff, like the amount of foreign labor we have in the trucking industry. In my opinion, work visas should not exist for things like trucking. Work visas, we should only be importing foreign labor into jobs that require like master's degrees or higher, or equivalent levels of experience or higher to like a master's or a doctorate. We shouldn't be bringing in general laborers to compete in this market. We shouldn't bring in foreign laborers as general laborers, even though trucking is considered a skilled profession. Something that takes like 3 months of training, we should not be bringing in foreign labor for that job. And they bring in foreign labor into the trucking industry so that they can keep the labor rates low. It's a manipulation of the free market. They just, and it's mainly the American Truckers Association, which does not speak for truckers. They speak for the mega carriers. But anyway, we do have some major issues with trucking. And we need a lot of the trucks to disappear off the road. But I am concerned with the tariffs in that it's taking longer than I expected for us to make trade deals, especially with China. This could be really, really bad. The freight market is going to continue going down, but I'm really concerned that this could last a while. At this point, if they wrapped up everything right now, we're probably looking at 1 to 2 months before things get back to normal. If things ended today, um, but this is going to keep putting more and more pressure on everyone the longer it goes. And once it gets to the point where it's going to start affecting the last quarter of the year, the holiday season where like most companies become profitable, you're going to see people start freaking out because most retail businesses make all of their money in the holiday season. And if the tariffs are going to start affecting that holiday season, that's going to start jeopardizing a lot of businesses. It's going to put a lot of businesses on the brink of bankruptcy. And you'll start seeing things get a lot more confrontational. People are going to get more desperate. So I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. Anyway, that's a whole other topic for a whole other video. So we'll just we've done the load board video, and maybe I'll make a video. This is the kind of stuff I'll rant about when I'm driving or something. And hopefully I will be driving soon. I haven't had a single load alert today. Not one load alert today. I'm in a freight dead spot. There have been a couple of loads that are so far away that I couldn't make the pickup times. But like, it's just I'm in a freight dead spot. I'm trying to figure out. I've been here for a little over a week, and at this point, I'm trying to figure out where in the hell to deadhead to. I've got a load alert set up for Fargo, North Dakota, 250-mile radius, which is picking up Minneapolis as well. I'm not getting load alerts on that either. I've had, like, in the entire week I've been here, I think I've had one load alert over there in the Minneapolis area that was a decent load. Not a great load, but it was decent. If I was close enough that I could pick it up, I would have picked it up. But it was like 700 miles away, and it picked up same day. I couldn't make it to pick the load up. So if I were seeing several loads like that coming out of the Fargo or Minneapolis area, then I would go ahead and deadhead over to Fargo. But I'm not, like, I've only had one load alert out of there in the entire week I've been here. So, like, do I even want to deadhead to Fargo? Like, at this point, I'm starting to think maybe I should just deadhead home. Like, if I'm deadheading all the way to Minneapolis, that's like 700 miles. How far is it? Let me pause this real quick. All right, it's about 13 to 1400 miles to Oklahoma City, depending on which route I take, whether I go through Colorado or I go through like South Dakota, take 79 or 29 down, or was it 25, 15 and 25? I can't remember. I think it's 25 that goes through Denver. So yeah, like we're getting into the point where I'm looking at how far I'm going to have to deadhead to find a load, and it's getting out to the point where it's like I might have to deadhead like 1,000, 1,200 miles to find a load. And I'm like, well, I could drive home. I could just go home and restock the truck and get a load out of Dallas. If I'm going to deadhead that far. So, like, yeah, I've got some decisions to make. I'm just hoping that somewhere out of the blue a good load gets posted. That's what I'm hoping. But I'm going to have to start thinking about deadheading somewhere pretty soon. And I'm not sure where in the world I'm going to deadhead to because I'm not seeing any loads within 700 miles of me. There's just like even over in the Minneapolis market, I'm not seeing much of anything worth a damn being posted over there. So, yeah, I don't know. I'll figure it out. But right now, I'm just still hoping that a load gets posted on the board. But anyway, hope you're having a good one. And if there's any particular place that like you're looking for loads out of, then you can post a comment. I'll try on my next load board video to take a look at it. Like I've had requests for LA to Phoenix, Houston. I can't remember all the various places people have requested to look at. I think somebody requested Florida. Um, Florida sucks. There is, however, a lot of local Florida runs, like just short little runs within Florida that you can be profitable on if they're same day runs. And I know that Florida is one of those places where there's a lot of drivers that just never leave the state of Florida. But anyway, have a good one. Bye.